looking everywhere else to solve this issue, but you're not looking inside.
It's trauma that brings us to where we're at now, right? On this holistic journey of how do we live a holistic lifestyle without dumping a bunch of chemicals into our body to numb ourselves. You're not dealing with the root cause, the root issue. Welcome to Whole-ly Chit. I am your host, Kristy Austin, here to remind you that you are whole. Also, Chit is a Sanskrit word for pure consciousness, which is what we're all here for, right? And today, on today's show, I have a super exciting guest, or I'm excited to pronounce our guest today. I've talked a lot about my healing journey, and this person who's on today is a part of my current healing journey. I met him about a year ago or earlier in this year, taking one of his Wimhof workshops. And I took the workshop because my son, I have a 24-year-old son who was in an accident, and a doctor said that ice baths would be good for him. And so I went to be courageous for my son. I'm only going to do this once, never again. I was really going because I wanted to learn the Wim Hof breathing technique. Being a yogi who's studied hundreds of different styles of breathing techniques, I was super excited about this. Not even worried about the ice bath. This person who's on our show, he can give you his titles, but who he is for me is the aqua therapy guru. He opened up my eyes to why water is so healing and the different benefits through water. And it's not just ice baths, it's contrast therapy. And anyway, I'm going to go ahead and introduce him. His name is Michael Roviello. I'm so happy to have you here. You know, you're like one of my good friends now. I adore you. Thank you for being here.
Yeah, thanks for inviting me to be on the show. I'm happy to be here. I'm actually at the gym right now, so hopefully it's not too much background noise, but I'm like grateful to be on here to have the conversation with you and just share all things about breathwork, water, Wim Hof, Optimyze, and anything else that you would like to know.
Yes. Well, why don't you start by telling us your journey, who you are, what brought you to this journey that you got to right now? Like, what brought you here to this space? Because you are a founder of Optimyze, which is a place that I now regular. I go a few times a week. I love Optimyze, but you do so much. It's not just owner of Optimyze. Why don't you start on who you are?
Yeah, I'll start a little bit like where I grew up. So I was like born and raised in Queens, New York. So like a inner city, raised by a single mom, 4 kids, just trying to figure things out. And through my teenage years, really was a bit lost. Was seeking mentorship and didn't necessarily have that. And so I decided to join the Navy in 1999, and I was 20 years old at the time. And so I joined the Navy in 1999, and I got selected to be in the U.S. Navy helicopter search and rescue program. And so that was a big jump. I went from like being this lost teenager to like, wow, I just qualified and signed up for this very challenging program. How am I going to show up? Can I do this? Like, can I compete? You know, I'm basically competing with people from all over the country. And I never really tested myself, you know, to that level. So that was like the start of like at least a big part of my journey. Of course, I'm skipping, 20 years worth of stuff, but ultimately I got to the Navy and I went to Great Lakes, Illinois, did basic training. Then I went to Pensacola, Florida, and that's where I did like aviation training. They call it air crew training, rescue swimmer school. And then I did something called Aviation Warfare System Operator School, which was basically a school to learn how to hunt submarines from the sky. That was like one of my main jobs. We flew in helicopters, and we would listen and hunt submarines all over the world. And because we were flying in helicopters, we also did helicopter search and rescue. So if there was any sort of like SOS calls out at sea, any storms, you might be familiar, maybe your viewers might be familiar with a movie called The Perfect Storm. There was like a
Yes.
helicopter search and rescue scene or scenes, a few of them in that movie. And so I went through all the training for that. And so I learned a lot through that experience. I obviously was getting the mentorship that I was looking for. I was learning a lot about myself, what I was capable of, how to handle stress and very stressful situations, how do I adapt to stress. So I was learning kind of the military way, which I think is an excellent way, especially for a young man. And the Navy was an amazing career. It was beautiful. I learned a lot. I got to travel the world. There's our pros and cons about military service, ups and downs because of the time frame that I was in. So 9/11 happened, September 11th, 2001. And so I was deployed for basically the war in Afghanistan on November 7th, 2001. So it was that quick. And so that was a very interesting experience to go through. And I had the opportunity to, serve my country, travel the world, um, see what I was capable of in a lot of different scenarios that were thrown at me, both from the rescue swimmer aspect of the job to the aviation aspect of the job to the hunt for submarine aspect of the job. And then when I separated, I landed here in sunny, beautiful Arizona, and I've been here ever since. And the way I kind of got into this whole Wimhof method and healing and all that, I didn't start there by any means. I liked physical activity because that was like part of my childhood and teenage years. It was part of my military training, that's for sure. And also, when I got out of the military, I was still very much into like physical fitness, but I found that I had a lot of like serious pain that I couldn't quite wrap my hands around and couldn't quite figure out what it was. And what I learned was I was actually had a spinal cord injury. And so the spinal cord injury was messing with my mobility. It was messing with my nervous system. It was messing with my psyche because of the pain that I was going through. So I was really just going down the rabbit hole of trying to find solutions to my pain. And ultimately, they recommended that I do an emergency surgery. And that required to get my vertebrae fused in my neck. It's called a anterior cervical. It's a spinal surgery. And after dealing with the spinal surgery, after dealing with the pain meds, the medications that come pre and post surgery, and then getting recommended another surgery about a year after I had it because of more complications, that was like the line in the sand for me. And that's essentially how I got into the world of like holistic medicine, natural health, naturopathic type of philosophy on health. And so I've been on that path ever since, and really just on a journey to explore and learn and to see what's out there and to see what works. And there were some things that I had found that worked really well, Wimhof method being one of them. And that's essentially how I met you, right? Years
Mhm.
later, in one of the workshops. So
Yeah.
I tried to abbreviate a lot of things quickly to get there. But yeah, there's a lot of stories, in between. But ultimately, I would say pain is how I got to where I am today.
So, and if I'm correct, you did not have to do that second surgery. Is that correct?
Exactly. That was a recommendation. So, like a year after my surgery, at first I felt fine and I was just kind of getting back to normal life. And then I started to experience the same issues. I was like losing feeling in my hands, and I was losing a lot of strength in my hands, like grip strength. And I was starting to feel pain and all the same symptoms that I really had prior. So, of course, you go back to the surgeon, you let them know what's going on. And so what they did is they gave me a few rounds of what they call these epidural shots. And these are like steroid injections, like directly into your spine to help with the inflammation. And those were very temporary. They would help for a little while, but eventually I would get back to the same place I was. And so there was a book that I read that kind of opened up my eyes. and it was called The Mind Body Prescription by Dr. John Sarno. And that book helped me to understand like a connection between psychosomatic pain and physical pain. And it really was just like, hey, Michael, you're looking everywhere else to solve this issue, but you're not looking inside. You need to look inside. And that to me just didn't make sense at the time, but it intrigued me because I had done a lot of work. I was doing all of the Western medicine, what Western medicine had to offer. And the inner journey is ultimately what really allowed me to get better.
Yes, I think you and I have that in common. It's trauma that brings us to where we're at now, right? On this holistic journey of how do we live a holistic lifestyle without dumping a bunch of chemicals into our body to numb ourselves, because ultimately that's what ends up happening if you continue going to the doctor and just put a bunch of prescriptions in your body. You're just numbing. You're not dealing with the root cause, the root issue. You just numb what's already there.
Yeah, and I wasn't able to even understand like what was the root issue. I mean, I just looked at my body as like a car mechanic looks at a car. Hey, this part's broken. You need to remove it, rebuild it, and replace it, and then you should be back to order. I didn't realize that there was this really important connection between the mind and the body, and that was so critical. I mean, to me, it was just like a good catchphrase that you would see in some marketing and advertisement, but I never really understood like the real source of that. So when I started to explore, that took me many places. I mean, it took me to the Amazon jungle. I went and learned from like native people that live in the Amazon basin. I tried a bunch of like Native American type of medicine down there. I tried meditation. I tried float spas. I, eventually got into breathwork, which I know we have the connection there. And at first I thought like, why would anybody want to learn how to breathe? I mean, everybody knows how to breathe already. Why would you take a class or take a course on that? And I realized the power of breathing exercises and the connection between your nervous system and your breath. And there's so much more that our ancestors and the ancients knew about that. And I was always interested in history and anthropology. So that to me like intrigued me, like what ancient people knew about stuff that, because I always had this idea that the newer society is, the smarter we are, like, oh, they weren't so smart. They didn't have the same sophistication. And look how smart we are today. But then I started to really dabble into what they already knew that we either forgot or maybe was hidden. And I found so much power in kind of ancient knowledge. And so Wimhof was also kind of speaking that same language, talking about kind of these ancient techniques, from breath work to inner work to meditation to, exposing yourself to extreme cold temperatures, which is also an ancient practice. It's something that's like common and a little bit faddish right now. You're seeing a lot of people in, Hollywood and professional athletes doing it, but it actually has really old roots.
Right. I agree with the breathing. I always say shallow breathing is shallow living. And I feel like most people breathe right here. And that's as far as they go. They don't breathe deeply. So when you really learn how to breathe, you learn that you're living a deeper, more fulfilling life. At least for me, that's what I've learned. So it's been a huge part of my journey. But you were talking about the cold therapy is an ancient therapy technique. Where does it stem from? And can you elaborate more on that?
Yeah, it's global. Everywhere I looked in every culture around the world, from Africa to South America to European culture to Asian culture, you will find some form of cold therapy used for medicinal and also spiritual use. So it's not just specific to one region. Like I'll give you a few examples. The Quieros, which are direct descendants of the Inca, and they live in like present day Machu Picchu, Peru, and the mountains of Ecuador and Peru. And even, Bolivia, that whole region was basically Inca. And so the Quieros are still alive today, still practicing ancient ways. And so I had friends who have gone and studied with them and lived amongst them. And they do like cold water bathing in these like frigid lakes, like at very high altitudes. And they, say that it purifies the body And so they will do that as like almost like a pre-ceremonial ritual. And because they use different types of plant medicines up there. And they say that it restores the body's vital energy doing the cold water and connecting with that cold water in cold temperatures as well. It's freezing up there when you're at high altitude. And then you go into, say, Native American culture, like here in North America, and you'll find that Native American tribes were doing a combination of sweat lodge, which is like heat therapy, like, basically like ancient sauna, right? Their own style of it. And then also using cold rivers, cold streams to also do that contrast therapy. And then if you go to Europe, it's all over Europe. You're seeing Scandinavian cultures using it. The Finns were the ancient people of Finland. They were called the Finns, and they were using wood burning saunas that they would make. And then they were using the cold air temperatures and cold streams and lakes and rivers as well to cold bathe. And then the Romans, so even as we start to get more sophisticated, right? The Romans had bathhouses, and so they had cold water in the bathhouses and also warm water. So they were using, ancient forms of hydrotherapy. And then if you go into Japan, you had the Himalayan, you had people in the Himalayan mountains. So that's in India, also using cold as medicine. And then you had people in Japan. They called the Misagi Japanese Shinto practice. Anybody can search that, and you'll see these Japanese people practicing mantras, essentially prayers and mantras under cold waterfalls. So freezing cold waterfalls going through the body, kind of like feels like you're getting electrocuted. I practice that here locally in the wintertime. Matter of fact,
I've seen those pictures where it dumps directly on their head, right?
Yes, and they're using the mantras, and it's wintertime, and then they take large groups of people to go out into the cold water. So it's just really old medicine, and no matter where you look on the planet, you'll find some sort of people practicing this method spiritually and for medicine as well.
That really is incredible. It's incredible that it's not more well known here in America. Well, it is. It's kind of becoming more well known, but it's always, from what I understood, it was more for athletes. It's like for athletes, for pain, swelling if you're having. So that's what I thought. And I'm like, okay, my son was in an accident. He needs to do this. This will help him. Sure. I have no need for it. And then with guidance from you, did my first ice bath, and you were playing the drum, and it made me go into this zone. And it was such an incredible experience, because I go into these meditations, and that I felt like just took me so much deeper into my meditation. It was a different type of meditation. Right. And that night I had the best night's sleep of my life. It got me hooked. Now, I go to Optimyze like 3 times a week. I need to get my contrast therapy in, but I would like to. So for me, that's what it was, is I noticed my sleep was very well improved, and mood. It felt like my mood was lifted as well. But why don't you tell us, because now there's been tons of studies, what are some other benefits of cold therapy and even contrast therapy? Because now I'm really into the contrast therapy that Optimyze offers with the sauna, the cold plunge, and the jacuzzi.
Believing Before Seeing, a new book by Candace Barr, teaching you how to believe into existence. Available now for pre-order.
Yeah, there's a movement happening right now where we are relearning things that we used to know. And so you got to understand that there was like big, strong marketing campaigns in the early 1900s by some of the richest families in the world that were really trying to pump the brakes on like natural holistic medicine and really trying to prop up, basically pharmaceuticals. So there was a lot of like smear campaigns on, this old ritual stuff is hocus pocus. And, so there's a lot of that happening. So I think, people got really numb to really knowing what their great grandparents knew and grandparents knew, and obviously much older. So it's important to know that there's been a lot of marketing against holistic medicine, but with the internet and Instagram and this resurgence of like kind of people tapping into that, we're learning a lot more about these old medicines. And we're also learning a lot about ourselves physiologically. Because if you think about it, when you go to school, you just don't learn much about your body. You go to grade school, you don't learn much about it. You go to middle school, you go to high school, even if you go to college. I mean, I went to college and I didn't learn much about my body at all. And so if you don't take the initiative to learn and explore, you're just not going to know. And so what happens is then you go to the doctor and you pretty much have to give all your authority away because you're like, I don't know anything about how this works. I mean, you're the expert. Tell me what to do. And, you don't necessarily know like where their head's at. Like, what do they believe in? What are their beliefs? Are they having a bad day? They just want you out of the office. Like 15 minutes, you got another patient. Like there's just a lot of variables that I don't think people take into account. So I think it's really important for people to get to know how your body works. I think it's like our responsibility, and it's a lifelong journey to learn about your body. And so one thing that cold water does is it basically puts the body in a fight or flight, So that's why people are terrified of it. Like I ain't getting in that cold water because they know that it's not going to feel good. And so when you initially get into cold water, your body goes into fight or flight, which means your nervous system gets activated. I mean, it's always active, obviously, but it goes into this mode called sympathetic, which I like to explain is like the gas pedal of the nervous system. So your body goes fight or flight, step on the gas. And when you step on the gas, lots of things happen physiologically. Your body starts to produce adrenaline. And this type of adrenaline from the cold water is called norepinephrine. And that automatically switches your mood. And so it takes you away from thinking about like yesterday and tomorrow and helps you to become very present right here, right now, because in a fight or flight information or situation, it's not important to be thinking about what you need to do 3 days from now or what you should have done 3 days ago. It's like right here, right now. So a lot of people who struggle with anxiety, where their mind's like super busy all the time and they can't be present, it's kind of a very helpful practice, is what I've noticed in my time of doing this and teaching it. This adrenaline also stirs up something that's called interleukin 10. And there's something about this cytokine. It's a anti-inflammatory cytokine. And so what it does is it blocks inflammation, suppresses inflammation. So people who are walking around with lots of inflammation, they don't even know, they probably forgot what it feels like to feel good again. And so then they get this relief of like aches and pains. So it's very good for inflammation. And then we forget like how much circulation we have in our body. And, you can research this. We have about the adult human body has about 100,000 miles of blood vessels circulation in our bodies. It's like hard to even fathom. And so if you think about that, that is our highway system where all of the nutrients and oxygen is being carried, right, to feed our cells. And when you go into cold water, that system constricts and closes. It's like squeezing a hose. And when you get out of the water and you get back to normal temperature, then everything reopens again. So you're moving a lot of blood through that whole system, and you're kind of giving that whole vascular system almost like a workout. And circulation is extremely important for like good health. And we've all seen, older people who struggle with circulation. They have like the water retention in their legs, or they have like some vein issues. And we all know that's like obviously not a sign of optimal health. So in order to maintain optimal health, you want to maintain like good circulation. Doing things like hot and cold therapies, whether it's hot water, like a, jacuzzi or a sauna, and then pairing that with cold is just a great way to open up the blood vessels, close the blood vessels, open up the blood vessels, close the blood vessels, and then all the other physiological things that are happening. Anti-inflammatory benefits, the mood benefits, but also you're learning how to train your nervous system. Think about it. So many people are triggered today, triggered over everything. They can't handle stress. So a stressful thing happens and they want to hide in the room for a week. And it's just not a good way to manage stress, right? It's good to feel stress and to process stress. It's normal. You should be doing that. You don't want to be numb to stress, but we also want to be able to rebound quickly and get back to what they call homeostasis, which is balance, finding balance in everyday life, because there's all kinds of stress happening all the time. Bad phone calls, maybe some bad news, traffic, work situation, financial situation, relationships, there's all kinds. And so you can't really hide from stress and you can't avoid stress, but you can train for stress. And one way to train for stress is by using cold water. And there's no secret why the Navy SEALs use it. Navy SEALs use cold water to train recruits who are trying to become Navy SEALs to adapt and react to stress in a healthy way, because we can't have Navy SEALs getting triggered, right, and hiding. They need to be resilient. So you are training this mechanism every time you step into cold water, and you sit in that cold water and you meditate like you explained. You're training your body's ability to adapt and react to stress in a healthy way. And that's power. And that is natural medicine. And that's just using water. There's no pill involved. There's no prescription involved. It's just you, yourself, and that water. And that's what I like to teach, is the kind of the old techniques.
The first time I did the cold plunge, I hyperventilated. So you were right there by my side. I dunked my head
reaction.
I'm going to do a head dunk. This will be easy. I got this. I'm strong. And then I was like, and I'm going, what? I'm a breathing expert who can't control my breath right now. What's going on? Like, why am I having this reaction? Why can't I get control over my breath? So yes, I definitely felt that when you're saying all the adrenaline rush that comes through and your body goes into shock. And I like the contrast therapy that you were also talking about, where when you go from the cold to the heat, it's like a workout for our blood vessels.
Yeah.
So that was a good way to describe, like a workout for our blood vessels, which we'll go to the gym to work out our muscles. Why won't we work out our blood vessels? This is like you said, is like the largest highway we have within our body.
Yes. And that's how our cells get oxygen. That's how our cells get food, right? So right. That's like the most important system. It's like delivering oxygen all the time. So, and disease essentially can't exist in an oxygen-rich environment. So when the blood circulation starts to like degrade over time, or through bad habits and bad lifestyles, right? Bad rituals, routines, then we start to get into problem areas. So oxygen is really important. That's why breathwork is really important. Circulation and breathwork go hand in hand. Breathwork and nervous system go hand in hand. I mean, that's just the way we're built. It's just this beautiful machine that we all have access to, that we get to explore and learn, and we can, optimize it as well.
Right. Well, you are not only an expert with the cold water, heat, the contrast therapy, but you also do water workouts, like underwater, way intense.
Yes.
Would tell us a little bit about that.
So I was inspired initially by my rescue swimming training, because obviously I was a rescue swimmer in the Navy. So we went through very unique training to learn how to be comfortable in water. Because when you're in the ocean and it's nighttime and you're in the middle of the Pacific, like, it's very uncomfortable. And if you're responsible to save someone else's life, like, you can't freak out. So they really push you to the limits all the time, testing you to make sure that you know how to adapt to water stress, right? And you don't know what's in the water, right? There's sharks, there's stuff, right? It's nighttime and it's a big ocean, that's for sure. So we did a lot of pool training in my days in San Diego and Pensacola, Florida. And I just saw that, like, that pool training is not just great for rescue swimmers, but it's also great for everyday people, right? So I started to follow a gentleman by the name of Laird Hamilton, and he is one of the founders of a program called XPT, Move, Breathe, and Recover. And I was inspired also by his work that he was doing, which was like underwater water training, because he's a big wave surfer. And he was using weights and swimming with weights and doing these breath holds and all of that. So I went through his program and trained with his instructors and became certified, and then started to bring that unique style of training to the Phoenix area. And so I host workshops locally. I was teaching with a friend in Houston as well, and doing water training. So it's a combination of some land training, breathwork training, and then basic swim training, but then also like underwater trainings, like grab a pair of 50-pound dumbbells and walk to the deep end of the pool and then walk backwards with them, or grab a pair of 10-pound dumbbells from the bottom of the pool, grab them, jump up, grab a breath, go back down, jump up, grab a breath, come back down. And so
That's intense.
mentally, so the real trick is, of course, you got to build your lung strength. So you're building lung strength. You got to build your, what they call CO2 tolerance. But the other thing is, in water, it's not about pushing it. Like, and everyone says, oh, just push it through. It's like, like kind of that fitness jargon. In water, it's different. You actually have to learn how to stay super calm in your mind. So when you're underwater and you feel the pressure of the deep end and you want to take your breath, the more calm you stay in your mind, the longer you can hold your breath. The more you freak out in your mind, the more you're going to want to like drop the weights and go up for air. So it's this beautiful practice of like learning how to stay zen under pressure, literally like under pressure.
Because I'm sure a lot of people feel claustrophobic. I think I would feel claustrophobic going that deep with weights, and you have anxiety surrounding that, and you're feeling claustrophobic, like you can't, get out. And what if I don't make it in to the top in time to take a breath?
Right.
That adds a whole nother level to the training. And
it's an ultimate confidence builder. Like you'll come out of there super confident. I like to say it's beyond resilience. We're doing training that's just beyond resilience. And you'd be surprised what you're capable of with good training in a safe environment, right? I had people in my last class that were like, they were really nervous about the training, but they wanted to do it. Something called them to do it. And they left that training like feeling really badass. And that badass translates into other parts of life for sure.
Right, for sure. And water is so healing anyway. It really is. I remember going through one of my yoga teacher trainings, and my 85-year-old teacher was like, she would always say on a full moon, go home and take a bath. You need to soak in that energy. And she would always say, go home and take a bath on a full moon. So I know that the power of water just alone, and then introducing these working out underwater and the pressure, being under pressure, that's very powerful. I might have to take one of your trainings, Michael. One of those trainings instead of just the Wimhof.
And think about water. Like the planet is like 70% water to mass ratio, and we are 70% water to like mass ratio. So it's like an interesting correlation. Yeah. So water's powerful. I mean, we can't last very long without it. That's for sure.
Very powerful. Well, I think we're about out of time, Michael. So I want you to tell us, just run down a little bit about Optimyze and what Optimyze offers. And Optimyze do you have 2 locations here in Arizona, correct? Yes. And then also give out your social media accounts, and so we can plug in all of your accounts and your Optimyze links as well.
Awesome. Appreciate that. So Optimyze is a human optimization center. We have 2, one in Tempe. We have one in Arcadia. We're building our 3rd in North Phoenix. So we'll have 3 here soon. We have a variety of different therapies. So people come in for a full experience of therapies, ranging from compression therapy to sauna to cold therapy with coaching to warm water hydrotherapy. We do PEMF training, pulse electromagnetic field therapy. So these are all like non-invasive, non-pharmaceutical approaches to health that will train your mind and your body. And it's good vibes. We have some live music nights that you went to, and just great community, great people. And so that's our place. It's called Optimyze, Optimyze. And our website is optimyze.me. And yeah, for me, the best way to find me is on Instagram, and you can find me at Michael_Roviello, Roviello, and send me a DM, send me a message. shoot me a follow. I'd love to connect with you.
Awesome. Thank you. And I love your events. I've been to several of them. I love it because you have those drumming circles, you have live music, the pan, what is it called? The
Pan.
hand pan,
Yeah.
the hand pan, the live music, the vendors, the cold plunge, the jacuzzi. You have this all these healing modalities while you're marinating in these yummy sounds of the drumming circles. It's so powerful, and I absolutely love them. I always feel like it's my me time to really go deeper into myself, and it's so powerful. It's your Optimyze. I said once I started going to Optimyze, I found my people. I really feel that way because I spent most of my life not really feeling like I could talk. I felt like every time I opened my mouth, I was like the weirdo, like nobody really understood me, right? And now I go to Optimyze and nobody judges you for anything that you say. Everybody has a healing journey that they're on that brought them to where they are. And usually it's pretty tragic what they've had to endure and what they've had to overcome.
Sure.
And nobody judges anyone on their journey. And it's so beautiful. And through this journey, I've met so many incredible people that have opened my eyes to other types of therapies. And now I'm like, I want to learn your therapy. I want to learn your therapy. It's like everywhere I turn, I want to learn more and more and more. So I love Optimyze. It's like one of my favorite places now. So thank you. I just want you to know how much I appreciate you.
Thanks, Kristy.
And creating this safe space for everyone to come heal. And if they haven't tried it, to start their healing journey. But I love you. I appreciate you. Thank you so much for all that you do, Michael. And thank you for being on.
Appreciate you. Yeah. Thanks for giving me the opportunity to come on here and talk and have a conversation. And we love having you as part of the community. And so we're blessed to have you in our community. So, and all your gifts and your, just your energy and your breath work and just the way you are with people. It means a lot. So thank you.
And we will see you next week on Whole-ly Chit with Kristy Austin.